From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
It's quickest, it's fast-paced.
Keeping the traditions of the woodman alive.
USDA is forecasting a large corn and soybean yield for Illinois. But what do farmers have to say? We have more during our I-80 Harvest Tour.
And wild weather adding up to a slow harvest in parts of the country.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Grain markets back in the red Tuesday following big gains Monday. That's after a new crop progress report that shows not much harvest progress at all. Snow, rain, slowing things down big time, especially with soybeans. Now take a look at these numbers from USDA Iowa. Only 19% harvested on soybeans. That's only a 1% increase over last week. The 5-year average, 51%. And in North Dakota, only 37% harvested. Usually, it's about 70%. South Dakota, 29% compared to the 5-year average of 65%. Now, among the 18 states surveyed, 38% have cut their soybeans compared to 53% typically.
We've had a rather choppy day here in the grains. For the most part, lower, especially in corn and the soybeans. And this is coming after a crop progress report yesterday showing soybean progress at one of the slowest we've ever seen. Really not much progress made at all last week. And we also saw conditions drop 2% in the good to excellent category, sort of reflecting our concerns of the damage that may have been done from the weather that we've been seeing in the last couple of weeks. Now, on Monday, we were sharply higher because of that. This past weekend may have been the pinnacle of the weather concerns that we're going to have. But now here on a Tuesday, sort of buy the rumor, sell the fact, we're taking some of yesterday's rally back.
But harvest delays aren't the only thing aiding that small soybean rally earlier in the week. 2 vessels loaded with U.S. soybeans left for China recently, Bloomberg reporting. One left the Gulf of Mexico, the other from the Pacific Northwest. One will arrive at the end of the month, the other won't arrive until December. As we've reported, since the tariffs were put in place on American soybeans in July, China has been buying most of its soybeans from Brazil. And South American supplies are now starting to run low, and there won't be another crop until next year. That could force China to have to buy more from the U.S.
The I-80 Harvest Tour is brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
October's also been a month of extremes when it comes to weather throughout the Corn Belt, from rain, flooding to even snow. Traditionally, Illinois has been known as one of the powerhouses, carrying big corn and soybean yields from year to year. National reporter Betsy Gibbon talks with farmers in the I-State to see if they've received the wild weather and if those big yields still hold true as we continue our I-80 Harvest Tour.
As harvest rolls on, these farmers say they don't have many complaints. Harvest weather has been good and the crop is even better.
An artillery of machinery advancing through the fields, a mission to move harvest ahead swift and steady.
We've been very fortunate that the weather's been so good for us.
A nice stretch for harvest for Mazan, Illinois farmer Paul Jeske. Yet he too anticipated a window when he'd be out of the field.
It's possible that today could be the last day for a week or so.
That day came and left with 2.5 to 3 inches of rain and even a short-lived blanket of snow, but nothing close to the white-covered fields and stunted beans in states to the west of him.
So weather and prices, the two things that are the biggest predictor of whether you make any money or not, you have no control over.
With only 15% of his corn acres in the field, he's taking a chance on weather again, leaving some in the field intentionally, hoping to get a 14% carry in the market if he can hold grain for 2 weeks. Harvest conditions are the same for Scott Halpin in Gardner, Illinois, but a shattered combine door has him temporarily out of the fields. Yet both farmers are experiencing similarities with weather and yields, even throughout the growing season.
We're getting really good yields for what we saw rainfall-wise this summer.
USDA seems to think so too. The department decreasing its average corn yield to 212 bushels per acre, still the highest for any state in its latest crop production report. But both farmers say yields are good, but still below what they harvested last year.
We're probably below what we've become accustomed to, and But we've become accustomed to some pretty big numbers here in the last few years.
I think most everybody is above APH on their corn yield. We're at least 10%.
USDA left the state average soybean yield to 66 bushels per acre, also the highest for any state.
But we're 10% above our APH pretty easily. Other areas of the state are making record soybean yields.
Our bean yields here are probably normal to maybe a tick above what we've become used to.
Until harvest is complete, more machinery will continue to roll, steady and true, undertaking the task of harvest for another year. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
All right, thanks, Betsy. USDA's crop progress report shows 71% of Illinois' corn crop has been harvested. That's 17% better than the 5-year average. Both Jeschke and Halpin say farmers were aggressive picking corn first this year before soybeans in their areas. They believe there's a lot of beans left in fields because of it. Some producers now turning their attention to winter wheat, but the USDA says the cold, wet weather has slowed down the planting of that crop. The agency reporting about 65% of winter wheat is planted. That's slightly behind the 5-year average, but that's ahead of last year's 58%.
With the cold weather settling in and even some snow, obviously the moisture is good in the long run, but we are likely to see a further slowdown in those emergence numbers as we move forward.
President Trump hearing from Georgia farmers whose crops were wiped out by Hurricane Michael. He visited a farm near Macon where a 4th-generation farmer lost 100% of his cotton crop. The farmer says they're still digging up peanuts, but the problem, finding someplace to take them because of the power outages. The president was also briefed on the recovery efforts.
Bottom line is it was a significant hit coming into southwest Georgia. Category 2 winds, as you can see, the swath that's behind us, Mr. President, here. And not only do you see similar damage where trees are down on homes, and there was a tremendous hit to the communications and power infrastructure, but you're going to see generational losses to the agriculture industry as well. The timing of the storm is pretty tough.
Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue says damage to pecan groves in southwest Georgia will be felt for generations. Pecan trees typically bear nuts about 7 years after planting. He called the situation heartbreaking.
It's a pretty sad situation after working through 50 inches of rain this summer. We got cotton with 275 ounces of picks, and it's all been blown away.
Wes Briggs, a crop consultant in South Georgia, shared this video and more pictures with us of damage from the hurricane. He says there was a barn over these peanuts and cotton on the stem before the hurricane. He estimates winds hit the area at over 125 miles per hour. We'll have more on the early dollar figure being assigned to all that damage coming up. For more on the damage to Georgia's pecan crop, here's meteorologist Cindy Clausen. She has today's crop comments.
Thanks, Clinton. Well, pecans are a big crop for Georgia, and no producer wants to see this. Pecans on the ground. Also, many of the nuts inside were not fully mature, and now that they're on the ground, some may be a total loss. Those that were mature can be harvested, but before that can happen, the debris must be cleaned up in the fields. Let's take a look at winds across the area as we head through the next 24 to 36 hours up towards the Great Lakes and into the Northeast and in the Four Corners region. It's kind of like a broken record. It's been that way for the past several days. Heading into the afternoon, of course, the winds get a little bit stronger as you hit daylight, and then in overnight hours we'll see those winds slacken off. Everybody but the Four Corners region and the far northeast. Heading into your Thursday, kind of a windy day in the far northeastern United States. Into the afternoon we go. We start to pick up some winds in the Plains states as well. We'll have your national forecast coming up in just a few minutes, but for now, here are your hometown temps.
Plan for the unexpected with weather forecast updates. Local forecasts are delivered right to your cell phone each morning, making planning a little bit easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
Looking for a new farm bill? Well, you'll have to wait a little longer. Congress is now out of session until after the November midterm elections. Washington policymakers return November 13th. However, there is the possibility of an extension of the current farm bill. There are 39 programs which could be orphaned without funding.
Most farm bills in recent memory have had an extension. We have an extension now. We know we can get through the end of the year before the wheels really come off in terms of permanent law kicking in. Senator Roberts, the chairman of the Senate Ag Committee, has indicated that he hopes to bring a farm bill to the floor the week after Congress returns, which is the week after the election.
Congress still can't agree on several key parts of that bill, including the SNAP program and land conservation. Why aren't great yields adding up to better soybean prices? We have some analysis on that coming up, and living the life of a woodman in the country. Brian Basting, Advanced Trading, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. Brian, as we pull soybeans out of the field, a lot of folks really aren't that excited about prices and basis that we're seeing out there right now.
That's a great point, Clinton. I think what you want to remember, and this applies specifically to those viewers who are looking at exceptional bean yields.
And we know there's some out there. There's a bunch of folks out there having great yields.
That's a great point. I want to make sure I address that to those folks. When you have an exceptional yield, remember it's about gross revenue, not the price.
Okay.
For example, if you have $8 soybean price and a 75 bushel yield, that'd be $600 gross, 75 times 8. However, if you'd have thought back to the spring, let's say your normal APH or your normal yield closer to 60 bushel, you're looking at a gross revenue of $600. If you'd raise your APH at 60, that'd be the equivalent of selling all your APH at $10 a bushel.
Wow.
That's what's important to keep in mind. The flat price today is low because we have such exceptional yields, but I really want to encourage your viewers who have exceptional bean yields, think about gross revenue and think about protecting that gross revenue.
Yeah, and it's not just about what the cash price is or the futures board price. You know, you really have to put this into a bigger picture and realize that those extra bushels matter. They count for something.
That's a great point, Clinton. The other thing I'd add to that is think about that payment you're going to get from the government.
Sure.
$1.62 on 50% would be 82.5 cents spread across those bushels. So in my example, you could actually tack on another 82.5 cents to up to $10.82 for those bushels.
That's almost $11.
So remember that
Yeah.
part of your marketing program. It's part of your marketing program, that MFP payment coming from the government.
Yeah, and talk about your marketing program as we try to sort that out real quick. How do you utilize that mindset, this gross revenue in a marketing program?
Just remember that's the revenue that you've put all your blood, sweat, and tears into for 2018. That's the revenue that you've got. It's how do you protect it? How do you say, I don't want it to go any lower than that? Another thing I'd encourage your viewers to think about is the carry in the market. You can even lock in a higher price if they've got on-farm storage, for example, by forward selling into next summer, because there's near 50-cent carry in the soybean market. But gross revenue, think about that's the revenue that you've earned, brought to your operation, but you've got to lock it in because it's not guaranteed until you take some action.
All right, well, appreciate that insight. We'll be back with more Ag Day here in just a minute.
To talk with Brian one-on-one, call Advanced Trading at 800-664-2314 or head online to advanced-trading.com. Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Here, meteorologist Sydney Clausen looking at the root zone moisture map. And Sydney, boy, you can see in the middle of the country lots of blue. Goodness sakes.
It's like night and day in some areas from what we were seeing on this map last week. It's crazy. Let's take a look. You can see why we were having some harvest delays, and especially the central and western parts of the Corn Belt. We got a lot of rain, and that is really showing up on our root zone moisture map. Lots of blue here, especially when areas that we saw lots of reds and yellows in parts of Missouri and Iowa and into Nebraska as well. So we're seeing a big flip on our root zone moisture. What surprises me is we don't see a whole lot of change in the southeast after we had Michael go through. We also had a big difference in much of the Intermountain West, as we are seeing a lot more moisture there as well. Let's take a look at what we have in store for us today. We're still going to see some scattered showers and some rumbles of thunder in the southeast all the way down across the Gulf Coast states. Some higher elevation snow and some showers in parts of the Four Corners region. We'll see kind of a weaker front moving through the eastern part of the country. Most of the moisture associated with that low there. So we'll see some rain and some snow in the far northeast. We'll see fairly dry conditions though in a lot of the Corn Belt. So you'll have a chance to continue to dry out and for some of you maybe get a little bit harvest done. As we get into Thursday, we're going to be seeing high pressure settling across all of the Corn Belt, so drier conditions there. We keep the wet weather in a lot of Texas and into the Four Corners region. And as we get into the afternoon on Thursday, kind of the same thing. We keep that wet weather right here in kind of the south central southwestern United States. Now, as far as precipitation, this is the past 24 hours. As we add on the next 24 hours, a lot of the same areas will be affected, especially Texas. More heavy rain for you folks there into the Four Corners region, a little bit into the northeast as well. As far as snow, not really much to write home about in the next 24 to 36 hours. It's mainly going to be in those higher elevations around the Four Corners region. Temperature-wise, really warm in Florida, but everybody else is going to be more so on the cool side, as we see a lot of 40s and 50s for highs for much of the country. Overnight we go, and we're going to see a lot of 30s around the Great Lakes, even into much of the northern plains, even 46 all the way down to El Paso. And then as we head through tomorrow, we're going to see temperatures still on the cool side. We're in this below normal pattern for a good chunk of the country. Here's a look at the jet stream, and you can see we still have that trough affecting the Great Lakes all the way up into Canada. The warmer air tends to be out in the western United States. As we head through the next few days, we'll start to see another trough dipping down into the Great Lakes for the weekend. The ridge remains in the west with the warmer air, but notice we start to see that ridge finally making some movement as we get into next week. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Aztec, New Mexico, cloudy and cooler today with showers possible and a high of 49 degrees. Havana, Illinois, sunny and chilly with a high of 53. And San Mateo, Florida, mostly sunny and hot for you with a high of 91.
How much could Hurricane Michael cost agriculture? The latest dollar figure as the losses continue to mount. That's next. More now on the early estimates of agricultural damage caused by Hurricane Michael. Official estimate damages in Georgia, Alabama, and Florida top $1.3 billion. Pecan and cotton farms are expected to be the hardest hit, along with poultry. Ag officials at the University of Georgia say the damage was significant to growers in southwest Georgia. They report disease could be a problem for crops due to rain and damage received from the storm. They also say very few vegetable crops in the direct path of the storm can be salvaged. Lost estimates range from 30 to 60% in that area, but there are some growers experiencing 100% losses of certain crops. And beverage makers and beer drinkers getting a jolt from a new study that comes from the University of East Anglia. According to the report, new research says climate challenges could slash barley production between 3 and 17% worldwide by the end of the century. Heat waves and droughts are listed as the biggest threats to the beer base, in turn driving up prices of key ingredients. However, the Brewers Association says, hold on, relax. There's no impending calamity here. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Well, coming up, a 4-H event that is old school style, learning the life of a woodsman in the country.
In the Country, brought to you by Kubota's M5 series, bringing new levels of comfort to hard work. Learn more at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
A long-standing Louisiana 4-H tradition is the High School Woodman Skills Competition. The event is part of the West Louisiana Forestry Festival and helps recognize the important role forestry plays. LSU Ag Center reporter Craig Gautreaux was in Leesville for the event.
Teamwork, brute strength, and technique were all on display during the Vernon Parish 4-H Woodsman Skills Contest. This annual event brings together approximately 150 students from 10 high schools and honors the forest industry and its storied history in the area.
Forestry is a big industry, our largest industry in the parish, and we just try to bring it back old style with the bow saw, the cross cut, the can hooks for the log roll and stuff like that.
Events included the log roll, bow saw, match split, pulpwood toss, and rope climb. There was also a leaf and insect identification component, but the highlight of the contest is the crosscut competition.
It's quickest, it's fast-paced, it's the heart and soul of woodsman skills.
It is the most physically demanding. If you're not fit in just about every way, or you don't have some core, you cannot do it.
Former competitors said 4-H in the skills contest ignited an interest in pursuing forestry as a career.
4-H led me to the career path I've chosen so far with the forestry program at Tech through 4-H University, forestry competition at 4-H University, obviously competing here, and then competing at the state woodsman skills in Winfield.
I actually work in the forestry industry, work for the U.S. Forest Service and Kisatchie National Forest here in Louisiana, so it did that for me, brought me closer and really set the stage for a career.
While the focus of the event was on woodsmen's skills and competition, there were also some life lessons mixed in.
Don't give up, keep trying, and some things in life not easy, and hope they learn from this, that if you keep trying, you can reach your dreams.
With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gocho reporting.
All right, thanks, Craig. Top finishers from this event will advance to the Louisiana Forestry Festival, which will be held in April. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.